Hello, YouTubers. This is a new session in our standard series where we get to talk about, interesting topics about the design and architecture of software components within enterprise level systems. And I'm joined here by my dear
Hello,
friend,
everyone. I'm back
Maddie's back.
after a
He's
while.
back in the game. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm fine. I was a little bit sick, but now I'm back and
So you
I'm
got
happy.
COVID twice, not once, but twice.
Yeah,
That's interesting, you know.
yeah,
Okay,
because
but
Omicron is like it's not related to the vaccination. It's related how to how many. I mean, it's about
crazy times.
crazy times. Yeah,
But you're
it's
still here.
yeah. I'm
It,
alive.
it must be it must be your knowledge about the standard that made the virus be like, no, I can't do anything to this guy. He has the knowledge. I'm happy you're in good health, and I hope that this plague goes away very soon.
Yeah.
All right, so what are we talking about today? I mean, the last time you and I, kind of talked a little bit about processing services. I really appreciate you for your due diligence. For the people watching us for the first time, Mehdi is very diligent kind of engineer that, keeps
Thank you.
going after a particular. Sometimes he forgets some of the PR comments, but that's okay. We can remind him. But more importantly, he's very diligent and he wants to learn and he wants to be able to kind of be a very helpful software engineer that actually can teach people and show them how to do things. And one of the projects that he's building a system called the coronavirus tracker, right? And this tracker is basically its main responsibility is to go pull some information from an external data source like an API, and then go back, store that locally, and then go back and add that into a local storage where you can expose the data in a better way through OData and through a nice UI and all that kind of stuff. So just so for the people watching us, we will be talking mainly about orchestration services in here, but the main part about all of this is that, oh, look at that. Look who just joined us now. Wow, look at
Hi,
that.
Elbek.
Hi, how are you
How how
doing,
how
guys?
how, how
Hi.
did that happen? How
I
did that
I
happen? That's
mean
interesting.
I'm like it's a surprise for me.
I love it
I,
when just, you guys should see like, in the office before, people started working remotely, there was always someone in my office, at least one or two people, just coming in, knocking there, say, "Hey, Hassan, we want to talk about something." This is exactly what this is. In all honesty, I just said to Elbic and Shrey, I said, "Hey guys, if you want to come hang out with me, come
Yeah.
hang out." And so, Elbic, we're talking about orchestration services today, as a topic.
hmm
So we're recording, so be careful what you say. I know you're a loose cannon. We can't control what you're saying. You're a little bit of a firecracker. So anyway, back to our topic. What Maddie's trying to build basically,
hmm
and we're using that as a real life, material for,
hmm
you know, he's basically going and saying, okay, you have this external API
hmm
that has a bunch of countries information based on their coronavirus impact. And he has a database, so somehow he wants to take that data and put it in here. And he wants to make sure he sanitizes this data so the data is not in bad shape before he actually persists in the database. So what he went and did, he built two brokers like this. And out of these brokers, he built two foundation services and two processing services, right? And he went and said the whole works, right? He went and said, I have a external country API broker, and he has a country storage broker. So he has two models he's working with, the external model and the local model. And also he has a external country service and
hmm
country service. And then he went and added processing service here where he said external country processing service. This one is just a pass through, Mahdi, right? So it doesn't really,
right.
but this one here is not. This one does the upsert, right? Modify, insert, or update. So country processing service. And what we are planning to develop, in this series, just a couple of videos, it will take care of the whole thing, is to create an orchestration service. And what this orchestration service is going to do, it's going to go and trigger this entire event. It will orchestrate this entire story. It will pick up a list of countries from the API, and then it goes after it pulls all these countries, it will go and persist these countries into the database,
Got it.
right? The trick here is that it's doing its validation, it's doing all the kind of magic stuff that needs to happen. So this is country orchestration service. Orchestration services, you guys have some rules, right? Like I can't just go here and say, here's 20 more services here, and let's just lump them all up together under one service. You can't do that. That will increase the complexity dramatically in your system. You can't do that. But also, more importantly, the rule here is to keep it to two or three. So, 2-3 rule. You can't have an orchestration service that doesn't have, like, an orchestration service, by definition, it orchestrates between multiple models, right? And because it's doing that, it's called orchestration.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we may as well just call it a processing service, because processing services are mainly focusing on the one model and one model only. Sometimes processing services will create their own virtual model, like something called a student registration request that gets translated later in the game into a student registration model, a physical model, right? Now, the thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys about, I was just documenting that in the standard on the GitHub repo this morning, and I got interrupted. But I can't go I can't go in public anymore. I'm on this Facebook group that everyone is from town is in there, and then anywhere I sit down, I'll be like, "Hey, are you the guy from that group?" And then I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let's drink some coffee and throw away my schedule." No, why not? So listen, guys. This orchestration service actually, this is what hit me today. I wanted to share that with you. A while back, not even a while, just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to this guy Yasser, and
Yeah.
Yasser is building this virtual bazaar, as you may have
Mhm.
seen, and he's building this system. And I was talking to him about entities like models, and these
Yeah.
models can be primary or secondary or relational, right?
Exactly.
Something that connects two primary components together, right? But you have to understand, like, the connection between these models are physical connection. Sometimes there is logical connection and there is conceptual connection. And what is that? How does that relate to orchestration services? I'll explain to you in a second. So, primary models, if you're building a schooling system, right? When you're building a schooling system, you have students and teachers and courses. So these are all primary. Like, they don't need to depend on anything. They're standalone. Physically, they are standalone, right? But logically, you can't actually have a student in a school without them taking a course.
Mm.
So logically, in terms of a flow, a student needs to take a course and the course needs to be taught by a teacher.
Right.
But the connection
Mm.
between these models are not exactly visible because it's conceptual. There are some models that will represent that physically, that's the relational models. But in a way, can you actually have a student model without a teacher? Can you have a teacher without a course? Physically, you can have the record in the database, but logically, you can't. It will be
Mm.
useless. It will be purposeless, right? Now, let me take this connection a little bit further, right? There's something called conceptual connection. Conceptual connection between models is when you go and say, okay, I have this school core API and I have this notification API. In reality, they're very separated from each other because they're microservices. They're living in their own realm. But you can't technically have a notification service without having a student to send that notification to.
Mm.
So even though there is no obvious connection in terms of code, the concept is there. The concept of having a notification being sent to a particular student, a particular teacher. Now, my question to you guys, if you really understood what I just said, what kind of connection do orchestration services enforce? Is it physical? Is it logical? Or is it conceptual?
Logical for sure. It should be.
Logical for sure. I
Yeah.
agree. That's a great point. Why? Because you can go through an orchestration service and say register student, and it will go and create a student model, and it will go and notify the teacher for it says, hey, we have a student, new student in your course, whatever. Sure. So
And
even though the
conceptual
connection is not obvious, the orchestration service will create that connection. What else?
and conceptual, I think.
Conceptual. That's also
Yeah.
true because an orchestration service will go call an external API to send the notification. What about the physical?
I think the physical will be handled by the foundation service, if I'm
Right,
right.
right. What do you think, Elbik? Elbik is like, I'm so tired, man. It's too early in the morning. What time is it over there in
Uh,
Uzbekistan?
it's 10:40.
So
Oh, oh,
10:40 for
oh,
no,
11:40. I'm sorry.
11:40 in the morning for you and 7:40 in the morning for Mehdi. Is that what it
Yeah.
is?
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know, 10:40 at night
Nate.
over here. You guys are keeping me up, all night thinking about all of you. So let me ask you this. Don't the orchestration service can build the order in a way? If you watch the cul-de-sac video, I created a library account before I created a library card. So I
Yeah.
enforced that physical connection, prevented it from happening as an erroneous flow by controlling the order in which these components are created.
Yeah. But I mean, you enforce it with the test.
Right.
Without the test, it's just working.
It's technically working, right? At least working on the unit test level, but not necessarily on the acceptance test level.
Uh-huh.
Acceptance test would expose that just right away. See how every test is showing an aspect of your software that the other test can't show, right? This is why the higher you go in the test hierarchy, the lesser the tests become, but more critical they become. Like if your acceptance test is failing, it's very likely that your acceptance test failure is a major issue because that's the happy path. That's the path that everyone should pass through. It's like the main street in a city. Everyone will go through that main street, right? Okay, so orchestration services sometimes can have a little bit of say in the physical relationship between two entities. However, they are the enforcer of mainly the logical relationship and also the conceptual inherently. In that, it's all under your logical. See how orchestration services is where your actual, like, once you start writing processing services and orchestration services, you're actually writing software. Everything else on the outskirts of that, like foundations and brokers, you're
Mhm.
still abstracting. Like even like a lot of people don't understand when I say foundation services is still trying to abstract away
Yeah.
the exceptions, the
Mhm.
external exceptions. You're still mapping things,
Yeah.
right? And it's very interesting that we are at this stage because, brokers is just one step of abstraction, but they're not the only step of abstraction.
Mm.
Okay, so we have primary, if you have primary connections, and you have these connections, you still can have two primary models, and they are interdependent on each other,
Mhm.
but not in a physical way. It could be conceptual. Like they don't really have real connection with each other. I'm gonna make this a little bit dotted like this because it's not really physical, right? It's conceptual or logical. So logical or conceptual models. And that's what these orchestration services try to enforce, right? They try to make sure that there is some relationship between one or another. If I go back to Mahdi's example in here, there is an interdependency between a country and an external country, even though in reality they don't have a connection to each other. Like there is no foreign key on the
Yeah.
country model that says you need to have an external country model. But the orchestration service knows that you can't actually create this record unless you pull
Mm-hmm.
that record first. So what
Yeah.
kind of dependency is that? Is that logical or conceptual? It's both.
Yeah.
It's both because conceptual because you're going all the way out there into an
Mm-hmm.
external API knowing that your service wouldn't exist with that, without that component being there, but it's also logical because you're enforcing, you know that you can't actually create that record until this other record exists.
Mm. It's both. Okay.
That makes sense. It seems
Yeah.
like it makes sense to me. Why do we need to know that? Why does it matter to us knowing that the relationship between certain entities is physical, logical, or conceptual? How does that help us while we're writing software? What do
I
you guys
think
think?
it should be like in the real world scenario, if you, mm, if you create a bank account without verifying anything, without a, ID card or something, then you will be happy. Why not?
Yeah, yeah.
If there is no, I mean, column for the user information or the
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
entity for the user information, and you can create a bank account,
Hmm.
then it's not making sense. You just
Yeah.
have
Right.
a bank account without any information.
Mm.
So are you saying right now that orchestration services are the only ones who can expose that level of
Mm.
relationships?
Yeah.
Mm.
Because your relational database model is not going to be able to tell. Like some people back in the olden days, they would make a fake entity to connect two entities together to indicate the relationship. But then they fall into that trap is that which one comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? Because if your primary model has foreign key, you will never be able to create it. It turns into secondary until you create this other one, right?
Mm.
And then there's always the genius that puts two foreign keys to two models at the same time, where you go into a form of deadlock because you can't create the chicken before you create the egg, and but the egg
Yeah.
has a foreign key to the chicken, and the chicken has a foreign key to the egg. We're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The-
This has been actually the biggest demotivator when I was learning entity framework. Yeah. And I think this is the case for a lot of people. A lot.
Yeah.
yeah.
They face that.
I don't understand why it's not working. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why it's so hard?
you know, I wish I could show you guys. Maybe at some point in time, you know how there are these videos on YouTube that are for reactions. Like people watch other videos and then they
Mhm.
react to these videos, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I should do reactions video about the pull requests that I see sometimes. I just be sitting like this and be like, is this guy for real? Just reactions about pull requests. There's no anyways. Okay, let's go let's go back to this. So it seems to me that you had all of that stuff done, my friend. All of that stuff in here
Yeah.
done. And the one
Mhm.
that's left is to be able to build an orchestration service. So we want to be able to pull a external countries from the API and then process these external countries and push them to the country processing service. There is a nice problem that you have here that I really like to discuss. In your code here, you're pulling a list of countries, right?
Yeah.
And you're pushing that list of countries through the processing service, right?
Right.
This is a scenario that I call a poison pill. A poison pill. What is this poison pill? You have a stream of objects going into your, so you have your list of countries going in here. So these are your external countries, right? One, two, three. Can you hear me? Here we go. There you go. There you go. Right? And all of them are good, but there is one in the middle in that stream that's bad.
Mhm.
What does that do to your processing service, though? It's gonna blow up.
Yeah.
Gonna blow up. Why it's gonna blow up? Because your, jeez, let's see, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. Here we go. Okay. So why, while like you'll be able to go and process this guy, process this guy, process this guy, process this guy, and then boom, it just fails. And then it blocks these guys from getting
Yeah.
processed. And then you end up in this deadlock situation where you're trying to process a list of external countries, but because one of them is violating your validation rules, it's not letting you. So what do we do about that? What do you think about that? What should we do here to make sure that we don't fall into that trap? Any ideas?
Let's be in the same page. Now we did the validations
Mm-hmm.
in the foundation level
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit in the processing.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's not catch that, and
No, it'll catch it. And the
but our
problem is that
service it is stop it. The service will.
yeah, yeah. So let me show you. So this is your processing service.
How
Where
about this?
where's the thing
If
that I
it's
just merged
failed,
right now?
submit another request.
Dude, where's the thing? Did we cancel your pull request?
No, it's already merged.
It's this one, right? Okay. So let me just explain to you. In your code here, let me share my screen here. Actually, let's do it from here because this will show us the whole picture.
Dot
Your
magic.
your yeah, your code. Yep, there you go. Yep. You guys should see Yasser's face. You know, I love the impression when people just look at that and be like, "What did you just do?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool." I love Yasser. He's all
Yeah.
right.
Sorry. Go ahead.
So your code here goes and says retrieve all external countries. So
Mhm.
you're returning a list of external countries, right? So your orchestration service will go and say here. Your orchestration service will go and say, here's a bunch of external countries and process all of them at once. Like it will iterate on these countries, and if one of them fails, you're screwed, right? Because
Hmm.
you can't continue sequentially unless all of them are perfect. So how do we solve this problem? How do we go and say if one of them is bad, still throw the exception, but don't block the other ones from going?
Hmm.
This is a very good problem to have. I am so happy that you're running into this. Not in my wildest dreams. I could have gotten a scenario to just explain this piece for you. What should we
Hmm.
do? Picking a list of things, and these list of things are coming through the stream, and one of them is bad and it blocks the entire request. It throws the exceptions and it terminates like it's a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
Do we? I know, Elbik. I think you do understand the problem. Mahdi, do you
So
understand the problem?
Yes, I got the problem. Now I
Now the solution.
solution.
You're gonna have to help me with the solution. That's why you're YouTube, putting you on YouTube. You can give me the solution. What
uh,
should we do?
can we uh, before persisting that data into database,
Mm.
check one by one
That's what you're
and
gonna do. You're gonna check one by one because your processing service takes only one country, right? Like your processing service that you built, your local country processing service. Let me show you. If I go here, oops, not this one. Hold on. So this one here, your processing service here, which is core tracker, core, you have your processing service, and then you have your country's processing service, and you exposed an API here that does what? Upsert, country async, right?
yeah.
So it takes one
Then
country at a time, right? So your orchestration service will have a list of external countries, and then it will iterate, and it's gonna keep calling this function
mm,
over and over and over and over again. So you can validate them one by one, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And if one
Okay.
blows up, it breaks
Yeah.
the for loop.
Why it's
Yeah. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
So we are validating the list of external countries, and we
Yep.
need to persist it into our local storage.
Yep.
The persistence case is done correctly. However, we are validating the external since we are validating the external countries uh, uh, as a whole.
Hmm.
So this is the problem, and it should be as separated, right? Each country should be validated. No, it should be. It should not break the circuit, right? It should
Hmm.
not break the circuit. If I'm
It
correct,
should
correct.
not break the circuit.
Yeah.
Or it should not break the circuit and retain the request for the engineers to be able to investigate the problem.
Hmm. Hmm.
How about this?
Uh,
Go persist in the database one by one. And
okay.
if it has any problem, just ignore it. Go for the next one.
Will it
So,
be
if this
too
is a
many
ba
requests?
yeah, if this is a banking system and there are people sending money to their families, you don't need those $2,000. Leave it and go. Good, good. Let's get all the bad ideas out.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is better than the right answer. I don't think the right answer would make me laugh that much. Okay, if you ignore it, if you ignore it, your data will be incomplete.
Yeah.
So that's not a solution. What can we do? What should we say?
What we have to do.
So it
Right.
seems like we need to be able to divide and conquer this problem.
Mhm.
It seems like it's begging for a solution where we take that data, that raw data from the API, and break it into smaller requests, and then process these smaller requests one by one. And if one fails, it drops in the queue, in the dead letter queue, so we can go back and see why this country, external country record, is not
Hmm.
processable.
Hmm. Oh.
We
Oh.
can use the queue here now
Mm.
because oh Jesus.
So. Oh. I see. I see. Yeah.
The stuff that I'm telling you right now, some years
Yeah.
from now, you'll be sitting in a big meeting and people will be talking about this, and you'll be like, you guys are wrong. So let's just so it seems like the solution for this problem
Hmm.
requires a little bit of component shuffling.
Hmm.
Can we back to the draw? Yeah, already did it.
So it
Hmm.
seems to me that we need a different model here. And the model that we have here is to go here and say, no, I'm not going to do it this way. I need to go here into my external country situation and put a something called external country queue.
Yeah.
And this external country queue, like at this point, your service's job is done. Like this orchestration service job is done. Why? Because all that it's doing, all its job is to pick up these countries and put them on a queue in here. And
Yeah.
this queue basically will take all these messages. So you're going to have external country queue broker, and you have external country event
Hmm.
service,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you have external country event processing
Wow.
service.
Yeah.
And now you get to go and say something like, let's see, you get to go and build something in here. Now you get to implement the cul-de-sac. Yay. So
Yeah.
you get to now go here and say, okay, out of this event service country, like in here, I need another orchestration service. It can be within the same one if you want to. You know, as long as you have both capabilities, like the listening and reading, what's going to happen is that the event is going to propagate out of here, go up all the way up, 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 up like that, and then it goes down here, and then you start persisting one by one into the system. So
Hmm.
you're not really, and to fix the order of this, because the order here really matters, this guy goes first in terms of persisting and reading and going back and forth. And you, hold on a second. Here you go. This guy. Also, I'll tell you why this is important, but I'll tell you in a second. So you're going up here and you're saying this is a new component in our system. We're
Hmm.
pulling the countries from here, creating messages and putting these messages on the queue. The messages will trigger an event. The event will go back and gets processed in here. If a message fails, it drops into the dead letter queue. So we can go and investigate and see why this particular external country did not get processed.
Hmm.
You can also break this into two different orchestration services if you'd like. One that writes into the queue and one that listens to the queue. Like I
Yeah.
personally I personally would go and say, okay, let's do it this way. Just a second. So I personally would go and say, okay, here's a solution. I can take this guy here like this and throw that guy in here with another one of these. It could be the same service, but you're dealing completely with a different
Mm.
orchestration service.
Yeah.
Like a completely different orchestration service that goes and says, I will correspond to this. I will take that event from here and I will
Yeah.
push that event in here. Whichever route you want to go is correct. This way, you're not losing any data and you are in control of your data that's coming from the queue. What do you guys think about that solution?
Yeah. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works, right? Now,
Yeah.
what's the other thing that's better than this? Like, I know someone is gonna watch this video and be like, "No, why don't you have internal queues?" I'll tell you why. Because as if you're getting way too many requests and you have multiple instances of the same API, we want any one of these APIs to pick up these messages from the queue. It doesn't have to go
Mm.
through the same instance of the service. It could
Mm.
be any other instance that's listening to that and trying to process and put the messages in the storage. This is a great problem to have. Anytime you run into a scenario where you're pulling a list of things and you're going to run your validations, you have two options. Either you change your persistence model to process an entire list and somehow process the exceptions, not recommended, or you break it down into smaller messages and start processing these messages at your own leisure. Because
Mm.
now you're not tied up to the same session or the same request. If you're
Mm.
getting, even from an optimization standpoint, if you're pulling, let's say a million, let's say a million record,
Mm.
right? It won't hang up your service until the million records are processed. It'll just take all of them, create a bunch of messages, and then forgets about them. And then another session will fire up to actually make this work. Questions?
How I should implement that now? I have to go and create a service bus and do some stuff in Azure, or it will be like a local thing.
You have to create a service bus in Azure, or you can go and look up a service bus emulator. I don't know if that does exist. Hold on, it does exist. Hold on, this is a great question. Thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate that here. So you can go here and say, let's see, Azure, Azure Service Bus Emulator. Back to Azure, so what we don't want to happen is to have multiple developers all reading and writing from the same queues. That's right. So there probably is a way you can do that locally. Probably there is a way you can actually do local development on Azure Service Bus Emulator. So go and research and learn something new and come teach me that new thing that you learned.
Okay. If I stuck, I go with the, like a.
If you get stuck, just create the one in Portal. You know, they charge you based on the I think it's based on the
I have
request
a
or something.
student, sir. I have a student like account, and I think it should be free for me.
Uh-huh. I hope this was kind of insightful to you.
Yeah.
It was
See,
perfect.
because you're breaking your stuff into smaller components, we can attach and detach new software into your system without you having to touch any of the code that you already merged.
Oh,
Hmm.
and another
Mhm.
question.
Go ahead.
In the cul-de-sac, you were the guy who sent the post request
Hmm.
from the queue,
Hmm.
but now we have to receive it.
Right.
Is there any difference with the implementation or
Yeah, there's in queue and listen. In the cul-de-sac, I was listening. In your case here, you will post and listen.
okay, I have to like go and study about it because it's like a new concept for me.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, this is very advanced. I promise you, I'm not just saying that. This is very, very advanced, right? Advanced topics. So we'll see about that and talk about that in a bit. Okay?
Sure.
All right. Thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate you both. Just a little bit of research. Investigate this local Azure Service Bus queue. You know, both of you. This is a very interesting thing to learn about. And for the people watching us, I hope you found this series and this video useful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. And don't forget what, Mahdi? What? How do you say that in
Like and
Persian?
Like and
Farsi?
subscribe.
like
No,
and
he says
subscribe.
it differently. I make people say it in their own languages now because I love people from everywhere. What? How do you say, son? What do you say in your? uh,
بچه لایکتون نره سابسکرایب کنید.
Oh.
There you go. I'll see you guys in another video. Thank you for watching.
See
Take
you
care.
Bye.
guys.